Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling something literally no one wants to deal with, but absolutely everyone needs to understand: sudden water damage. Seriously, it's one of the most stressful things a property owner can face. But hey, we're not just going to stare at the damage and panic. Using some truly fantastic source material from restoration experts right here in Jefferson County, we're going to demystify this whole survival and restoration process together. By the end of this, you'll know exactly how the pros conquer these disasters. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture it. Water is suddenly flooding your home. What actually happens in those crucial, chaotic hours that follow? Panic sets in, right? The water is spreading incredibly fast, and you've got this terrifyingly tight window to act before things go from just a bad mess to an absolute total catastrophe. That ticking clock, that is exactly what we need to unpack today.
So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, Irondale's unique risks. Second, the 3 categories of water. Third, the ticking clock. Fourth, professional restoration. And finally, navigating insurance.
Starting off with Section 1, Irondale's unique water risks. We're looking at geography, infrastructure, and climate. Now, look at this number right here, 90%. That is how high the summer humidity regularly hits in Irondale. It literally feels like a jungle outside, right? And this matters so much because under these sweltering subtropical conditions, wet building materials they simply cannot dry naturally. The ambient moisture hanging in the Alabama air completely stalls evaporation. Unless you have heavy-duty intervention, that water isn't going anywhere. And honestly, that brutal humidity leads us directly to our next absolutely critical number, 48. It takes merely 48 hours for a seemingly small, harmless leak to morph into toxic black mold. Think about that. You've got an environment that straight up refuses to let things dry, paired with this ruthless countdown timer. It basically guarantees secondary damage if you leave it unchecked. And this brilliantly illustrates the tangible reality of living in Irondale. Take neighborhoods like Crestwood and Watterson. The heavy clay soil there, it doesn't absorb water. Instead, it pushes it right up against your foundation like a wall. Then you've got Shades Creek, which is notorious for overflowing during those intense Alabama spring storms. And inside the homes themselves, properties built back in the 60s and 70s are dealing with aging galvanized pipes that literally corrode from the inside out. Add in those rare but totally devastating winter freeze events where temps drop below 20 degrees and burst pipes up in attics. Man, you have the absolute perfect storm of local vulnerabilities. Moving right along to Section 2, the 3 categories of water. Because no, not all floods are treated equally. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the strict S500 standards, set by the IICRC, actually break water down into 3 distinct categories. Category 1, that's your clean water. Think of a broken supply line. Then we have Category 2, which is contaminated. That's your classic dishwasher leak or a toilet overflow. And finally, Category 3. This is black water. We're talking highly dangerous sewage backups or floodwaters. You simply cannot treat Category 3 water the same way you treat Category 1. The health risks are just absolutely massive. But guys, here is where the science gets truly alarming. Category 1 clean water, it doesn't actually stay clean. Within just 48 hours, bacteria will rapidly multiply in any standing water, instantly turning it into Category 2. So if you hesitate, you are fundamentally escalating the health hazards right inside your own home. That innocent-looking puddle degrades into a toxic breeding ground incredibly fast. All right, Section 3, the ticking clock of damage. We're talking response times and hidden moisture. Let's look at the actual timeline of a disaster. It's literally a ticking clock. At minute 0, boom, the pipe bursts. And we already know that by hour 48, toxic mold growth is accelerating. So what's the most crucial milestone in between? It's minute 60. Getting emergency professional extraction teams on site within that very first hour is the ultimate key. It's basically the gold standard for saving the structural integrity of a home. And listen, if they don't get there fast enough, you're going to face a totally fascinating but highly dangerous mystery that professionals call the illusion of dry. See, to the human eye, your drywall might look perfectly fine after you mop up a big spill. But make no mistake, destructive moisture is still lurking. It remains trapped deep inside those wall cavities and subfloors. Professionals literally have to use deep moisture meters and thermal imaging cameras just to detect it, because surface readings alone, they will absolutely lie to you. So the crucial point here is exactly why your standard DIY methods are going to fail.
Those little consumer dehumidifiers you buy at the hardware store, they barely make a dent in that dense Alabama humidity. But commercial dehumidifiers, oh, they pull a staggering 150 pints of water per day to literally force evaporation. That's a massive amount of water. To put it in perspective, professional intervention in these cases isn't just some nice-to-have luxury, it is a hard requirement. Which brings us to Section 4, the professional restoration process. Let's look at the science of mitigation.
You see, the really rigorous S500 protocols dictate 3 distinct, completely non-negotiable phases of restoration. Step 1 is emergency extraction. You got to get that bulk water out fast. Step 2 is structural drying and daily monitoring to hunt down and handle that hidden moisture we talked about. And step 3 is the final inspection and restoration to definitively prove the property is safe and ready to be put back together.
Let's move to the next part and see how this builds, because the sheer scale of the physical arsenal they use to pull this off is just incredible. We're talking about massive truck-mounted extractors that rip out thousands of gallons of water an hour. They're strategically positioning these high-powered industrial air movers specifically to target hidden crawlspace moisture. They're deploying EPA-registered antimicrobial treatments to stop mold dead in its tracks. And they're going after very targeted metrics like aggressively drying wood floor joists until they hit exactly a 15% moisture content. It is a major, major operation.
Finally, Section 5, navigating your insurance claim, the power of the paper trail.
I love this quote from our source material because it perfectly summarizes the bureaucratic reality of water damage. Insurance companies need proof that proper protocols were followed to approve claims without reducing payouts. Honestly, it really is that simple. A flawlessly maintained paper trail is the absolute key to securing a successful settlement and removing the stress of fighting with your insurance company. Without it, you are incredibly vulnerable to pushback. So, what exactly do these adjusters demand to see? Well, quite a bit, actually. They want pre-extraction photo evidence. They want detailed room-by-room thermal moisture maps proving exactly where the water migrated. They need fully itemized damage estimates and daily logs showing the output of the dehumidification equipment. I know, it sounds like an exhausting list. But here is the brilliant news. Professional restoration teams handle this entirely. They generate all this proof for you, specifically so you don't have to go toe-to-toe with the adjusters yourself.
Wow, okay, we have covered a lot. The hidden risks, the hard science, the heavy-duty tools, and even the mountain of paperwork. But to wrap things up today, I want you to consider your own home for a second. If you have ever had a leak, a minor flood, or a burst pipe, ask yourself, is your property truly dry, or is it just surface dry? Understanding the real anatomy of a disaster is the very first step to ensuring you are truly protected. Thanks for learning with me on this explainer, and keep asking those deep questions.